All right, y'all. So we covered a Joe Rogan clip the other day. He called Trump a drug addict and a man baby. And he also was praising Bernie. This clip has come out after the fact. I think it's from the same podcast or podcast in the same week as the last one. So let's listen to this. Joe Rogan laces into critics who say he's conservative. Quote, "Suck my dick." So he's talking to Andrew Schultz here, who's a funny guy, great comedian. So let's listen to what they say.
What do you think that is about? Like, what is this? It's not just abortion rights, but now they're going after gay marriage too, which is so strange to me.
They also went after contraception, Joe. 195 Republicans voted against the right to contraception. They want to allow states to ban contraception. So if Alabama wants to ban the pill, they want to allow that. Wild.
That people are talking, like Marco Rubio was saying that it was like a silly thing to argue about, to be concerned about. And then some other senator who is a gay woman confronted him, and she was furious at it. Because gay marriage is not silly. It's marriage. It's marriage from people that are homosexual, and it's for them. It's important. They want it. They want it. They want to affirm their love and their relationship. And the fact that they're going after that now almost makes me feel like they want us to fight. They want to divide us in the best way they can, and that this is the best way for them to keep pulling off.
So he's making the argument. I mean, this is the classic leftist argument of like, keep us fighting over culture war issues as you run out the back door with all the money. And there's definitely truth to that. I would say the other thing that's true is that the elected Republicans, not your average Joe and Jane Republican necessarily, but elected Republicans, Republican politicians, are far more primitive and retrograde and doctrinaire than people thought they were. For 195 of them to vote against the right to contraception, for 157 of them to vote against gay marriage, for now J.D. Vance is out there saying maybe divorce should be banned. They are deeply, deeply authoritarian on social issues. So all that fake talk about freedom and liberty and live and let live, they don't mean it. They don't mean any of it.
All the bullshit they're doing behind the scenes is to get us to fight over things like gay marriage, or get us to fight over things like abortion. Or it's just like,
Yes.
why
Yes.
are you removing freedoms?
Yes.
And and then this new thing where they're gun rights, like trying to go after the Second Amendment. You see that story?
There are some politicians who are advocating for restrictions on gun ownership. Nobody's trying to eliminate the Second Amendment. Nobody. It's not possible. It's not possible to do that in this country. So, yeah, are you talking about, in some places a ban on assault weapons or a ban on high-capacity magazines or universal background checks? Yeah, that's happening. But those are just standard regulations. Now, you could agree or disagree with them, but I wouldn't categorize that as, coming after the Second Amendment or trying to eliminate the Second Amendment. It's not going to happen. Never.
That recently happened where there's a shooter in a mall.
Can we
and
say
this guy
something about
pulled
the
out
gay
his gun.
marriage real quick?
Yeah, please.
Like, if you're going to say that marriage is an important cultural institution to the fabric of America,
Right.
you can't remove it from Americans.
Right.
You can't go and say, this is important, this is what we do, we create a family and we love one another, and this is how we
Right.
express our love, and then say, these Americans can't do that shit.
So he's right. And that's a salient point. That's poignant. It's going to land with a lot of people. But here's their rationale. I don't view you as equal. I view what you're doing as degenerate. So you don't count as a full American in my eyes. You count as a sinner who's lost your way, who's engaging in bad activities, and I don't want to, promote those bad activities. So I want to take away from you what I don't think belongs to you. I think marriage is definitionally between a man and a woman. That's what they think. So in other words, and Joe's about to make his point in a second, it is quite literally bigoted. Like, it's homophobic. There's no other word for it. That's exactly what it is. When you say you shouldn't get equal rights to everybody else because of something arbitrary like your sexual orientation, you are saying you are less than, you are inferior. That's bigoted. That's the definition of bigotry. And by the way, that shouldn't be controversial, because if somebody openly came out and said, I'm against interracial marriage, it shouldn't be allowed. Everybody would say, oh, well, you're a racist. That's what you are. I mean, just own it. Like, okay, take that position, but then own the fact that you're a racist. Because what you're saying is that's inferior. That doesn't count. That's not the same as a same race couple getting married. So just own it. Own the reality of it.
So homophobic because you're saying there's something wrong with being homosexual. By saying that you are opposed to gay marriage, you're saying you're opposed to gay people.
Yeah.
Because if gay people are in love with each other and they want to have a celebration and they want to be legally bonded and connected, and there's all sorts of benefits to that in terms of
financial benefits.
Financial benefits,
you build
taxes,
it into the system. Yeah.
But not only that, like if your loved one is in jail or not in jail, well, that's
on trial. You can't.
Or I was going to say in a hospital.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. You have access to them. Yeah.
You have access to them, and you're the only one that has access to them because you're their spouse. You're the one who has power of attorney if they're incapacitated. Like this, there's a lot to like affirming that relationship. Yeah. And the fact that they're going after that now, like that's the kind of shit that keeps me from being a Republican.
Yeah.
It's only one of the there's a bunch of shit that keeps you from being a Republican.
Yeah.
But that's one of the, like people will say like, oh, you're a secret conservative. I'm like, you could suck my dick. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. I'm so far away from being a Republican.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no doubt that if you list out all the policy issues and get Rogan's position on them, he's going to come out not just like center left, he's just flat out left. He's going to give a handful of issues where he's not. Right here, I'll play that for you.
Just because I believe in the Second Amendment and just because I support the military. And just
By the way, they're definitely pro-gun lefties. I consider myself a moderate on the issue of guns, and I'm a lefty. So the pro-gun lefty, that doesn't mean, you're on the right.
I support police.
Yeah.
Like I was on welfare as a kid.
Defund the police only has an 18% approval rating, so the overwhelming majority of lefties support the police. Do they want to reform them? Yeah. Do they want to remove the abuse? Yeah. Do they want to maybe demilitarize in some instances? Yeah, but plenty of people who are on the left support the police. The whole support the military thing. Nobody has anything against the individual people in the military. It's the institution of the military and how the politicians vote to send them to places that they shouldn't be. That's the problem. So, but anyway, he's saying, hey, here's some areas where I'm not on the left, but I'm overwhelmingly on the left. All that's true. I've made that argument 1,000 times. What I will say to Joe, though, is you can't say you think Ron DeSantis would be a good president, thereby supporting him, and also say, well, don't call me conservative or don't call me Republican, because now you've given that argument some credence. Because even if you do have left-wing policy views, if ultimately you end up lending support to somebody who's far right, then you've given your critics a fair point, man. You've given your critic a fair point. It's like if I were to say back in the day, in the 2000s, like, or in the year 2000 or 1999 or whatever, I'm not a Republican. I believe all these left-wing things, but I think George W. Bush would be a good president. If somebody says you are manifestly conservative or Republican, that's not unfair, because it's like, okay, you may say all these other things, but in terms of how you're lending your support or your vote, now, obviously you didn't vote for DeSantis because DeSantis hasn't run for president or run in a primary or anything like that, but to say it to millions of listeners, oh yeah, I think DeSantis would be a good president. The guy is against legal marijuana, which Joe cares about deeply, deeply. The guy's against raising the minimum wage, which Joe cares about deeply. The guy has signed a number of anti-First Amendment, anti-free speech, anti-free protest bills in Florida that we've covered in detail on this show. The guy has pretended to crack down on woke corporations, and really what he ended up doing is shifting the tax burden from Disney onto working class people in Florida, effectively raising taxes on working class people in Florida. I mean, he's very far right, and his positions are antithetical to everything Joe said here. So, while I understand his anger at people who call him conservative, now more than ever, they have an argument that's somewhat fair. Look, I would say Joe's just heterodox. He's all over the place. He's got beliefs that are all over the political spectrum, but in terms of how he votes or who he thinks would make a good president, keep it real. He goes off vibes. He largely goes off vibes. Maybe when he supported Bernie, it was a little bit more substantive on specific policies, but to lend any sort of credibility to DeSantis, there's something about the vibe or the leadership feels that you get from it that you're like, okay, that guy, because on paper, he could not disagree with you more. Anyway, let's finish this up.
Yeah. I think it's important. I think having a social safety net is
great.
Crucial.
Yes.
It's crucial.
Yeah.
We should help each other. We're supposed to be one big community. By
the way, DeSantis would gut that social safety net.
A bleeding heart liberal when it comes to a lot of shit.
There it is.
I just also believe in discipline and hard work.
I'm on the left. I believe in discipline and hard work. Plenty of lefties believe in discipline and hard work. That's not... The right might use the language of that stuff more or berate people about that stuff more, but that doesn't mean anything. Because I don't even want the government yelling at me to be disciplined and be hardworking. It's like, that's not your fucking job, bro. Go give people health care, dippy. Like, that's what I want them to do. I don't want them saying that shit. So I don't want Democratic politicians lecturing me or Republican politicians lecturing me about my private life. But in terms of how I act in my private life, yeah, I do believe in discipline and I do believe in hard work. That's not a right-wing thing, but he seems to attribute it to them.
Yes.
That's where I fall into the more conservative side.
And
but
that's
I'm
okay.
But I'm not a person who wants to keep all my money and not pay taxes. Like, people have accused me of moving to Texas because I didn't want to pay taxes. No, I moved to Texas because I want fucking freedom.
Look, he's making the argument, I moved to Texas because I want freedom. I think he's specifically referring to the lockdowns that were happening in California. They were one of the more strict states, and restaurants were shut down and whatnot for a while. They wouldn't even let people sit outside during COVID. So that's what he means when he says, I moved to Texas because I want freedom. California was locked down. Texas was not. That's what he means. But there's so many ways in which Texas is less free as well compared to California. And you all know that. I mean, legal marijuana, for example. Who has it? Look at what's happening now with abortion. How they're viciously cracking down on it in Texas. In Idaho, they proposed a bill where even if it's to save the life of the mother, you can't get an abortion. I think in Texas, they're considering that now. They're trying to do the criminalize people from going from Texas to other states to get a legal abortion in another state. They're trying to criminalize that too. There's so many things that, happen in Texas that are deeply anti-freedom. So I don't think that's a great point. But look, to his point of I believe in social safety nets. I was on welfare as a kid. I think it's great he believes in social safety nets, and he experienced firsthand, government helping out. And so he wants that for other people. That's wonderful. Again, I would all just come back to that main point of, but then you can't support DeSantis. Because he is not with you on any of that stuff, dog. He's just not. He's just not. And, Joe, I know Joe is a great dude because been on his show 4 times. He's a friend of mine. I've had great conversations. Look forward to having more great conversations. But we're going to get him off of DeSantis for sure. Because, and maybe I'm naive, but I believe him when he talks about, hey, here are my policy ideas. And as long as you can prove, here's what you believe, and DeSantis believes all the opposite, then, you can't support him. But look, what I would say to Joe is one point of disagreement is this. People didn't have a point when they said, oh, you're a secret conservative or secret Republican or whatever. They didn't have a point. But you just gave them the most ammo you could have given them by, saying, I think DeSantis would be a good president. Because now, functionally, there is an argument in that direction. Even though I don't think Rogan is lying or being misleading or anything when he says, I believe in all these policies. I just think he's making the decision on who to support really based on vibes and not as much based on substantively what has this person done and what will they do with power. So it's just, we got to align those things. We got to align both of those things. Here's what you believe. Here's what he believes. Contradiction. Got to pick somebody else. So anyway, that's that. Hey y'all, do me a favor and like and subscribe. It helps out big time in the algorithm. Click the bell as well for notifications when videos drop, and watch that video on screen right now. You know you want to.